A man named Jack was walking along a steep cliff one day when he accidentally got too close to the edge and fell. On the way down, he was able to grab a branch. Temporarily stopped his fall. He looked down to his horror, saw that the canyon fell straight down another 1,000 feet. He couldn't hang on to the branch forever. There was no way for him to climb back up the steep cliff wall. So Jack began yelling for help, hoping that someone passing by would hear him and lower a rope or something. "Help! Help! Is anyone there? Help!" He yelled for a long time, and no one heard him. He was about to give up when he heard a voice. "Jack, Jack, can you hear me?" "Yes, yes, I can hear you. I'm down here." "I can see you, Jack. Jack, are you all right?" "Yes, but who are you and where are you?" "I am the Lord, Jack, and I'm everywhere." "The Lord? You mean God?" "That's me." "God, please help me, I promise. If you'll get me down from here, I'll stop sinning. I'll be a really good person. I'll serve you for the rest of my life." "Easy on the promises, Jack. Let's get you off of this ledge here. Then we can talk. Now, here's what I want you to do. Listen carefully. I'll do anything, God. Just tell me what to do." "Okay. Let go of the branch." "What?" I said, let go of the branch. Trust me. Let's go. There was a long silence. Finally, Jack yelled back, "Help! Help! Is anyone else up there?" Now, there are many variations on this same theme, this humorous anecdote, parable, if you will. One of them, this one I thought was a little bit funnier than the other ones. The other ones kind of involve, falling off a cliff, but you are attached to a rope, and then it's nighttime, and there's calling, and you can't see, and by the end of the morning, there's the same call from God. It says, "Cut the rope," and no one, the person doesn't cut the rope, and then they find out by morning and dawn that they were like a foot off the ground. But it gets to that same theme of those things that we hold on to, the reasons why we have this challenge of being human and our human nature to hold on to things even in the midst of God directly calling to us and saying to let go. Let go. It is so challenging in life, and I can tell you from personal experience just how challenging it is to let go, even though time and again we're instructed to forgive, we're instructed to let go of things, to move on. All the scripture readings today have that same theme of, essentially, if we're going to allow more God presence into our life, we need to let go of some of this other stuff that we have inside us. And it's not an easy process because our minds, our egos, all the false things we love to cling on to those things that kind of give us some identity, some sense of who we are. Even if it is in opposition, we're the opposition to that, so that identifies who I am. So this theme, it's going to continue. I'm going to go into a deeper dive. It's in Exploring New Earth. It's called Letting Go, the Pathway of Surrender. And I'd not heard about this book until fairly recently. Dr. David Hawkins. He did a lot of research on this topic in the 80s, 90s, and he passed away in 2012. And I just learned about his work, but he was not only had his PhD, but an MD, he was a psychiatrist. So he studied a lot of this stuff from the vantage point of being a scientist, deeply immersed in the sciences. And then basically when he hit 50, he had a list of like 50 different problems that were chronic and severe, and he couldn't figure out how to take care of them. The only reason he gives as to how he was able to continue professionally was sheer willpower. And then from that moment on, he became a deep mystic, and God's presence entered into his life and transformed it, to the point where he was giving lectures on what had happened to him and how he had overcome these. And then there was one little note that I thought was pretty fascinating. And it was about someone attending his lectures and said, well, if that's all true, when you can surrender it and let go and God's healing power will be there, why is it that you're still wearing glasses? And he thought about it for a second. He's like, you know, you're right. I'm going to test this one out. And this just kind of gave me a sense of who this guy is, even though he's, I only know from this book kind of a connection to him. But as I've been following Emanuel Swedenborg, also scientist turned mystic, this kind of inquiry became fascinating. So as an experiment to see how far he could take this path of surrender, of letting go and allowing something else to enter in, he decided, okay, I'm just going to stop wearing my glasses. And he describes driving around, actually. He's a little bit wily that way. He said, well, I could just see enough. I could see the edge. It kept me from going off a cliff. That was one of the things he shared. And he said, well, it took about 6 weeks. But at 6-week mark, my vision came back perfect. And I went to the driver, renew my driver's license, and they'd never seen anything like it, because they have that test that you do, and it's corrected or uncorrected. And lo and behold, through this process, perfect vision. He said he's taken others through the same process. I personally, probably, it would be challenging to try and drive around Los Angeles. I'm not recommending it, especially without any correction. But I just thought someone with this kind of education and caliber, who was able to kind of see and connect to this other force working, was able to actually live this out, to take it to this other level where by letting go, it is a process of healing. And so he has a map of consciousness that he's done, and it goes from 0 all the way to 1,000. And he says Christ consciousness is at 1,000. And then you go down and the heart level, love, is about 500. And he has this whole process. We're going to dig deeper into this from 12 to 1 today, on this process of surrender, of letting go, and this map of consciousness, which I found. So it's one of those things that, it's a rare moment where I've come across a book just kind of gets me at where I'm at the right place at the right time. And I was so fascinated by reading this, and I know others have read this book and talked about spiritual transformation happening in their own lives, that I decided to take it a step further and actively practice this. And I got to say, there were some results, and I got some validation from, we were traveling with my sister and nephew, and I mentioned this book, and when I was practicing, she gave me some confirmations, like, I've been noticing some changes as well. So the main thing was, and this is what I get to give as an invitation. It's an open invitation. You don't have to read this book. But it's simply an awareness of when you're feeling things like anger. Because if we're honest with ourselves, a lot of what's out there in politics in the world and things that are happening even in the news feed, it's meant to agitate us. It's meant to get us into this state which is not the highest level. To simply acknowledge our feeling state and say, can I let that go? And pay attention to it. It's pretty fascinating. It's a living experiment. And so I'll get into this a little bit more, but I came across just by happenstance this week as I was going through preparation for today, I found that this theme is prevalent right now. And Richard Rohr has this reflection. It's called Releasing Our Passions. Richard Rohr explores the emotional energy of anger and how it can allow it both to inform and move through us. In Greek mythology, 3 female goddesses, the Furies, were the deities of retribution and vengeance. They were horrible to look at, with snakes for hair, black wings, and blood dripping from their eyes. Though they were supposedly pursuing and punishing evildoers, their righteous need for vengeance brought about little lasting good, because they needed to punish evil too much, and thus became evil themselves. Does this not sound like what practitioners of modern nonviolent theory tell us? Violence begets violence. Our words furious and infuriated come from these goddesses. Their main problem was that their righteous anger consumed them, and their blind fury became an end in itself and the lasting message. It has taken us centuries to fully recognize this pattern is operating in human beings too. It is common for the psyche to put its hope in a retributive notion of justice, even though we know it never works long term. That reveals the classic pattern of all addiction. We keep doing something even when it's not working. The preoccupations of the Furies were what the later Desert Fathers and Mothers would call passions, or what we might call addictive emotions. Whenever we recognize an outsized emotional response, we can be pretty certain that we are over-identified with something, or our shadow self has just been activated and exposed. If we are ultimately incapable of detaching from an emotion, we are far too attached. There is much evil and injustice in the world that deserves righteous anger. But a good practice is to watch that emotion a bit, to see where the anger is actually coming from. This will take humility and patience. If it is truly God's anger, we can also trust that God will lead us to resolve that to some degree. But when it's mostly our anger, if we are using God as our justification, it will have too much urgency, too much of me, too much righteousness, too much impatience, too much need to humiliate the opponent. We almost always start there, but good therapy, a wise friend, or spiritual direction can help us distinguish between our personal anger and God's pure anger. This might take some time to learn, but unless we do this, we will not have healthy or helpful emotional responses. The unhealthy ones will have us. This is surely what the Bible was pointing to in using the psychologically astute phrase of being possessed by a demon. If we don't want to let go of our anger and keep justifying why we deserve to hold on to it, we're probably operating out of our own offended ego. When we can let go of it after properly acknowledging it, we will probably be able to retrieve its wisdom without its excessive charge and use it effectively. In the stillness, new insights, comfort, and ways of being often arise. What we experience in the letting go phase, some people describe as intuition. Many would call it the gentle voice of God speaking within them. Seasoned contemplatives like Thomas Merton describe letting go, letting be, letting come, and setting free and discovering the true self. Others call it becoming the best self. I tend to think of it as becoming the integrated, unitive, or connected self. This connected self, to bring together smaller, competing parts into a larger, harmonious whole. It seeks to integrate the known and the unknown. It wants to help the parts of me to live intentionally, in relation to each other, and to the reality outside of me. It seeks harmony and interdependence among parts, not domination, manipulation, exclusion, and oppression. It holds the both and part of the whole. So I really love that reflection, also in relation to this book about letting go. And this concept of the anger we hold, the recognition. Anger is actually a subsidiary of other fears. And that combination was a powerful one. And I'm going to allow that to be something. I'll invite you all to practice that, to identify it, to see what happens if you can actually let it go. It was a little bit easier because I was on vacation. The word vacation comes from the Latin vacatio, meaning freedom from service, respite from work, which itself comes from the word vacare, to be empty, be free, or have leisure. Now, the root word vacare literally means to empty out, to vacate, to be free. So part of this was an opportune time. It began with a reunion with old friends, time with family. There was a special celebration of my niece getting married on August 2nd. And the other thing I'll share about that was just how powerful it was for me personally to witness a really good wedding ceremony. And as I know some here, I've officiated many a wedding. But to be in the position of not having official responsibilities, to empty myself out to that moment, I cried through most of the ceremony. It was just a really, you could feel the presence, the love between the couple. The officiant knew the couple, and, you know, I spent a lot of time just, you know, talking with the officiant afterwards. It happened to be another pastor, David. And in that moment, in that exchange, it was just a really nice thing. He's pretty new to ministry, and he's got some exciting things to say, and I just wanted to share how meaningful it is to be able to be there for a couple, and also to say the things that are really important about all the things that can get in the way, all the distractions of life and the world. And so, not to get into too many things, but I often use this in some wedding counseling, that it's kind of like a triangle. God is up here, the wholeness, the fullness of God. The individual lives are down here. And that as we are with a person in marriage, we have our individual lives, we have our connection, and as we progress through life, hopefully, as we're moving through it, not only are we getting closer to our reunion to be with our Creator, but that connection between each other also gets closer. And it's a beautiful parable, it's a beautiful metaphor. And so, you know, just really brought re-energized me for not only the power of marriage love, but also divine love in that ceremony. And, you know, the celebrations, they continued. There was a barn that was used for the dinner and the speeches, and then lots of dancing afterwards. It was a really incredible evening. And I can go into more detail, but what started after that was kind of to kick this off, was to really dig into what I found as a powerful practice in just simply paying attention to what is happening within me. And I could practice in real time when you're traveling, as we all do. It's probably one of the greater disciplines in the Los Angeles area is monitoring our inner emotional states while driving. Because we can all agree that this is a great thing to do. We can get energized. We feel the Holy Spirit moving through us right here, and that all lasts until we have to take a left turn right out of this space right here. And depending on the time of day, I will refuse to turn left. I'll go right and go a different direction, because it can be really challenging. But those are the little things that are actually big things. When we think about who has the power to change our emotion, we're allowing others to change our state. And so, part of my discipline, my practice has also been, once I've kind of felt this other energy, once I've felt kind of this connection to God that feels sacred, it feels whole, what am I willing to do to let go of that? I'm trying to hold it. I'm trying to state very clearly that that is the most important thing that exists. Because we can all entertain and get into these lower vibrations, and they feel good for a moment. But they don't serve our highest good. They don't do a whole lot for us in the long term, especially all the science that now backs what happens when we're in a state of chronic anxiety or anger, how it affects every part of our biological systems. The other thing that I started to do recently was go back to my call to ministry back in 1999. Some of you don't know this story, and I'm not going to get into the whole story now, but it was moving away. It was another form of emptying out. And I was also in a Master of Science and Information Systems program. I was studying the sciences when I, too, had a mystical breakthrough, an understanding that was beyond my comprehension. So this combination of things, of understanding some of the science part, but also letting go, allowing another force to enter in. It's a theme. And part of the challenge is it's so simple. It's kind of like love. Love is the answer. It's always the answer. But to actually live that out and to try and do that on a daily basis, it's a challenge. So I want to wind this up, and I want to leave us with, one of, this was the name of a previous sermon, but I'll just give you the Zen proverb: let go or be dragged. And I want to give you this metaphor to wind this up. There's some powerful imagery about the ways that we hold things. Any situation we can use the same metaphor. And it's a little bit like whatever that is that has a charged opposition. It's like us holding a big thick rope. It's like tug of war a bit. And if it's big, it might feel like we're holding the end of the rope, and on the other side is a professional football team, the whole team. And we can do all we can to try and dig in. We can try to strengthen everything, get better shoes to dig into the earth, do our working out, anything we can to hold that where it is. Most of us don't consider the other option. Let go. I'll leave us with that for now. The 1 Peter 5, verse 7, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. It's an open invitation. And if some of that message today is a challenge, we can always lay our burdens down with the Lord. That's a lot of the parable of how we're able to channel some of this challenging material. But I wanted to give you some of that insight that I came across, and about that divine flow, about an open heart, and about these higher energies that we can only attain once we're able to actually truly and feel the letting go of some of that, whether it's fear, whether it's anger, whether it's other things. And as I mentioned, we're going to be covering this from 12 to 1 in greater detail, and you're all welcome to join me there. So in other words, let go, let God, and allow God to enter in more fully, to empty those areas out, those petty thoughts, those feelings, replace them with the power of the living God to flow freely through us and to all we meet. May the Lord so help us all. Amen.